Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome. Today we have with us for our interviews Pastor Yi Wang. This is perhaps a name and a face you do not know, but Pastor Yi has been working in the United Reformed Churches now for over 2 years, since 2018. He's an associate pastor working with Chinese nationals, and that is the focus of his ministry. So we're so glad to have you on, E. It's been a long time, but we're glad to finally have you on these interviews. And you're going to be writing for the Trumpet this month as well.
Thank you, Richard, for inviting me.
Now, E, could you just give us a little bit of your background, how you came to know the Lord, your studies in Italy? Just go over that a little bit with us, if you could.
Okay, so I was born and raised in China for my first 20 years of my life. And around that time, I went to Italy for my college studies. And back in China, I was raised in a pretty normal family, atheistic, and we don't believe in any deity, in any religion. So I was pretty much what I believed of this world. So it's just materials and matter stuff, and there's no transcendental reality at all. So when I went to Italy, my story can be quite a long story, but I would just make it short. I was struggling to coming out of the Chinese environment, and on that airplane from Hong Kong to Rome, there were a couple of Chinese students together on that plane. And one of them was a 10-year Christian in China. And eventually I shared an apartment with him for over a year. And during that year, he evangelized and brought me to church. And that's how basically I became a Christian. But just to recall that whole process, I just saw how the Lord has used every person, how he just planned that, put that person on that same plane. And I never knew this person in my whole life, and we spent time together, and he brought me to church. So I was baptized after a year. It was in a church that now I know was a liberal Baptist church, so it's not a Bible believing church, but still in that environment, I can still learn some basic truth of Christianity and experience the love of the congregation. So that's basically how I became a Christian.
That's neat. It's amazing how God orchestrates all of the events of our life, and that's so cool to hear how God put that person beside you on the plane.
Yeah.
Now you studied in Italy for 4 years. You got to know some of the men there working in the URC as well, right? You got to know Andrea Ferrari.
Yes.
Some of the other brothers.
Yeah.
And eventually you ended up studying in Westminster Theological Seminary in California.
Yes. So when I was baptized, I was baptized in a church in a city called Turin. It's about 2 hours west of Milan. And after that, I went to Milan, and I was involved in a Chinese church. At first, it was just a regular evangelical church with a female preacher, and at that time I wasn't really getting to Reformed theology. It was, I was brand new Christian and I knew nothing. And I just remember that she was preaching from the church, saying that we are, it's up to our choice to choose God, and something like that. And I just remember that when I heard that, I said no, because I read my Bible, and so I started to look up resources online, and I came across first R.C. Sproul's material, and I just started to learn Reformed theology, and after that I said, I need to go to a Reformed church, and the only church that I could find was Andrea Ferrari's church in Milan. So that's why I went there and eventually stayed there and for a couple of years, and then I decided to come and study theology, and to plant a similar church that I was grown within.
So in the seminary years, God began to work in your life, kind of showing you, right, a path to begin ministry there in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
You're working out of Christ URC in Anaheim. Maybe just tell us how that began, how the work itself began.
Yeah, so the seminary study coming to about 3 years, and by the end of that, the third year, I was praying, where can I use my training and really help. So during that time, I had some friends up in the Anaheim area, Orange County, and I visit them, and they were Reformed, confessionally Reformed or Presbyterian, but they were all scattered into different churches. They're all Chinese people, but so I just I was talking with them, and they told me that there was not even one Reformed church, in the Chinese-speaking world in Southern California. I can understand that it could be the case in Europe because our population was very small there, but in Southern California, we have so many Chinese people, and and we have so many resources around here, so to imagine that there are hundreds and thousands of Reformed churches in China, but they're where the resources are limited, um, but here we don't. So that for me is a need, and is a burden for me, because a lot of people in China, the Christians in China, they are looking for resources. They're looking for guidance, and to implement Reformed theology and our understanding of the church and how we, church government as well in China is not very easy, and you can tell from the news. It's a very harsh environment right now. So I was praying that I see that here is a very good soil to implement, to plant, because we have already the resources and we have the population, and we just combine those two. And so I shared my vision with these families, and they all responded very positively. So we said, okay, let's start it with the Bible study, and that Bible study just continued to grow. And eventually, after about a year, we are around the 2019, in the fall, we launched a worship service, and till today we're about 40 to 50 people. So
you mentioned Bible studies, you mentioned services on Sundays. Are there other ways that you're reaching? Are they most of them are they all from China, or are they from different countries, different nationalities?
Yeah, mostly are from mainland China, but we also have a large number of people from Taiwan and from Hong Kong, from Southeast Asia, so like Indonesia, Malaysia. So what's in common is that the language that we use. So it doesn't matter which nationality they belong to. So as long as we can all speak the same language, that's how we worship together.
So you have services on Sunday mornings in the building in Christ URC in Anaheim. And do you have families, singles? What kind of, or is it a mixture?
It's a mixture, but the major part are young families with children, similar age with me. So, but we also have older couples, and we have singles. The only components that we don't have right now are college students, I guess, because the location of our church not very proximate to any major campus. But we have students contacting us and in touch with us. So hopefully that's something that we can develop in the future.
Um, what are some of the challenges to reaching people with the gospel? Chinese nationals, those speaking Mandarin. What are the biggest challenges that you face?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that for me it's easier to reach out to the unbelievers, but it's more difficult to reach out to the already converted Christians with the right understanding of the Bible and the Reformation. Um, so for the unbelievers, I guess the main thing is worldview. Is that they are raised in that world where there's no God, and science is everything, and we can interpret everything. And I guess that's kind of like a older generation thing, like people were raised in 70s, 80s. But for the younger generation, I guess after the 90s, or even after people were born 2000, they kind of like getting into a more general spiritualized world where they don't like the cold, Aaron cold, materialistic worldview, but they're more like talking about emotion and spirit. And so you have those challenging worldviews, so you need to deal with that. But also, it's interesting that the Chinese population, if in the statistics in the Southern California area, is more Christianized. So you have more Chinese people baptized into church, but that's a problem because and there are so many Chinese churches here in the town, in a very small city, and it's not even a city, called Roland Heights, where I was living. There are more than 10 Chinese churches in that very tiny piece of land, and but they're not preaching the gospel. That's the problem. They may present a very simple version of gospel, but basically it's more like a moral story, and some therapeutic message that you can get a peace of heart, and peace in heart, and get the joy, have joy and peace, and you have positive image of yourself, you can be successful and all that kind of thing. So I have people coming from those kind of churches and telling me that they finally received the right message of the Bible. They never heard of the gospel, and it was just all prosperity gospel. So that's the, I think, the challenge that we face for both groups.
Yeah, it's similar in some ways to the Hispanics. I know many have been affected by that very, yeah, it's a simple message, but it's very much a prosperity gospel. And sometimes retraining people can actually be more work, can be harder work than somebody who comes in from, without any knowledge.
Yeah, I remember we have a member came from a Pentecostal church, and she had a chronic illness, and so it's like her body doesn't really function well, and she told me that she went to the pastor and sharing her struggle, and said, why didn't God rescue me from my illness? And pastor says, you just need to have stronger faith, and just pray, and speak in tongue, and have that gift, and you can conquer this. And after a couple of months, and she was trying, she was really trying, and it didn't happen, and there's no miracle. And her mom was also ill back in China, and she's like double burdened, and she went to the pastor saying, it doesn't work. And the pastor says, you just need try harder.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, in that world, she was crushed. And so when she came here, and she sit under the right preaching of the gospel, and that burden just gradually lifted. And it's just like, it's okay for me to be ill, this long-term struggle, as long as I have assurance of my eternal destiny, and my eternal home, my eternal comfort. That's the comfort, that's the only comfort in life and in death, and that's enough. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. So lacking today in the theology of many, and that's wonderful to hear. Is there one person you can tell us about that has come to know the Lord, or a conversion story that you've seen over the last while?
Yeah, we just had the adult baptism last Sunday, and it was a lady, a cancer survivor, and she it's amazing story. She was practicing Buddhist back in China, and she was always seeking to open to the spiritual things, and but then she was ill with she had cancer, and on her treatment, they have interpreters, Chinese people coming to help you to talk with the doctors, and so one of the interpreters was a Christian, and she also worshiped with us. So she was sharing gospel with her, and during that suffering time, is people are very open to um, the gospel, and so she was like, yeah, I wanted to know more, and she went to different churches, and you know but at that time there was no Reformed church there. Our church was pretty recently planted, and she just tried different churches, and she was not satisfied. There's always something missing. So when we started our worship service, that interpreter, brought her to our church, and since then she's been with us always, and listening to the preaching, and so she was not baptized, and she was not professing her faith yet, but she just came every Sunday, and I didn't really had a chance to go through a one-on-one, kind of evangelism with her. It's just a very simple preaching of the gospel from Sunday pulpit. And then one day she told me, I want to be baptized. And I said, okay. Well, if you want to be baptized, and right now we don't have a particular course for, adult baptism, but you can join our regular new member class. And so it was designed for more like targeting evangelical Christians.
Mhm.
So, but she came and she sit down and listen, and it was during the pandemic. We were doing online actually, and after that we had a new member interview, and I didn't expect her to know everything. But when the elders asked her, why do you want to be a Christian? Why do you want to call yourself a Christian? And man, that answer brought tears to the eyes of the elders. She just professed her faith. She said, because I believe that Jesus died for my sin, and I believe that I'm reconciled with God. I no longer live in fear. I don't fear death any longer. And that was just a powerful. It's just a cancer survivor as facing death face to face, and now she can say, because of Jesus, I no longer fear death. And I think that's one of the best moments in this hard labor. For years maybe you don't see fruit, but once you see it, once the Lord gives you that, it can last very long.
Yeah, that is so exciting. What a wonderful testimony. This is something that I love for our churches to hear of how God is changing lives. And that's what we need to remember, right? The gospel is the power of God to change hearts and lives of people who do not know him. And we have to go out with that boldly. And so thankful for your work, E. Thank you for coming on today. And we look forward to reading in May about in June rather, your testimony and a little bit more about your work. So we look forward to that.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, have a great day. God's blessings.